Hey, what is up guys? Killian here bringing you another video, and this one I kind of wanted to go over the newer Berserker skills. Like, this is going to be more of a Berserker specific, well, not necessarily Berserker specific because I'm going to be going over crystals and things like that as well, but more tilted towards what Berserker's gained in this level 65 patch. For those of you who don't know, I'm Killian. I have mained Berserker for about a year in TERA Rising. I typically don't even play classes like this, but it just seemed to work. It really worked with me, and I've been really enjoying it ever since. And with this patch, they've actually done quite a few neat things for Berserker. So first, let's start with the skills that they gave us. They give us a skill called Raze. Raze is a very quick sweep, as you can see right there, and that is glyphed with 25% attack speed, but we'll go into that later, which can be sped up after an auto attack as well. You see how quickly that animation is. It's a stagger. However, if you auto attack in the stagger, it's more than likely not going to stagger because they overlap, as well as just a kind of a quick motion forward. So you can use this as a really nice skill to move around opponents, because it does kind of have a frontal cone effect, much like you see in some Slayer abilities where they'll dash past you but still hit you. This is kind of a Berserker version of that, as well as just being an additional ability you can use in between knockdowns. For those of you who don't know about Berserker PvP, it's very knockdown oriented, meaning you're going to keep them on the ground. You force their retaliate. You know, you get a single Thunder Strike off. Okay, boom, they're going to retaliate up. You chase them, you chase them, you chase them, and then you manage to knock them down again. At that point, you can auto attack, Raze, and then continue a KD chain. Or let's say you do that through Staggering Strike, Flatten. You can use Raze as a stagger into the Staggering Strike. There's a lot of potential with Raze, and I think that there still needs to be a lot of testing done with it. But right now, it really provides Berserkers that quick attack that they need to properly skirmish a lot of the current melee classes, especially with the amount of buffs that they got. Next up is going to be Tackle. Tackle, or as I like to call it, Axe Toss, which, let me see, where is it? Yep, right here. Spin your axe and hurl a bolt that knocks down enemies up to 18 meters away. The 18 meter marker is, for the most part, valid. It's a little bit off, and it might be different from each class to class, or race to race, rather. But here's what Tackle is. You literally launch an axe at people. The really cool thing about this in PvP is that it's a guaranteed knockdown. And, you know, unless they have retaliate buff, or if they have, you know, Mocking Shout or something like that that prevents knockdowns going on. Tackle has done a lot for Berserkers. One, it gave us a ranged KD. Simple. Like, a ranged KD is insane for a Berserker. As you can see, boom, just KD'd that mob. Because we've always had a mobility issue. They haven't really given us any increased mobility as of this patch. However, I do hear there's some in the works for the near future. But having that range KD, being able to follow up in some kind of method against classes that can jaunt away like a Mystic, or lots of backsteps, and usually that's a result of after you knocking them down once. This is a huge follow-up, and on top of that, your typical KD chain, this makes it to where you don't have to cut it off. You can actually get an entire another partially charged Thunderstrike. So typically you'll be like, let's just say that they don't have a retal, and I haven't used Tackle yet. So boom, right here, alright, I hit the guy. Alright, cool. I can then auto attack Raze, Staggering Flatten, go behind him again, another Thundering Strike. At this point, you can actually Tackle. That'll KD them again into another partially charged Thunder Strike, and if you have the mana, you can finish that off with a Leaping Strike. And before the Leaping Strike, you might even be able to pull off an auto attack Raze again. That shows you how much of a huge damage combo there is. As you saw, it took a shit ton of my mana. So, you know, if you are planning on doing this, trying to get these kinds of setups, make sure you have the mana before you try and go fancy mode, because nothing frustrates me more, well, other than desync, but nothing frustrates me more than going, oh, I'm going to get the kill, I'm going to get the, oh, you're out of mana, and then you're just kind of screwed. The last ability is kind of a niche ability. It's called Unbreakable. Unbreakable, fueled by rage, your HP won't go below 1 for 8 seconds. You can still die if you receive a single blow that exceeds max HP. The single blow over max HP, realistically, that's just going to be for the PvE dungeons. But it's a 5-minute cooldown, which basically makes you not invincible because you can still be stunned, you can still be knocked down, you can still be staggered. But what I've been using this for is if I know I'm in deep shit, like if I'm in the middle of like 5 people, right? I'll just pop this, and as you see, it's literally the exact same animation as a Unchained Anger to restore your mana. But right there, I was pretty much immune the entire time, and I used that to escape. You know, escape or try and get another healer, or get a heal from someone if there is a healer around. I don't think, you know, some people have been telling me, oh yeah, dude, I just pop that and then I go, I'm gonna fucking one-shot you, Cyclone. No, I do not think that is an optimal use of a 5-minute skill. This ability should be used to allow you to survive longer, avoid death, basically avoid death, and give yourself enough time for a healer to come help you, basically. All right. So now that I kind of covered the abilities, let's kind of go into Glyphs. Glyphs for Berserker, you know, a lot of it has still maintained very typical. Right here, guys, is a glyph setup that I'm currently using for PvP. You know, there are a couple things which you can kind of honorable mention or check, you know, switch things up to see how you want to play. All right. As a Berserker, you definitely want everything in Thunderstrike. Hands down, you want the 25% speed or charging speed on Thunderstrike. You want the decreased HP consumption so you're not killing yourself. You want the eliminate movement speed restriction whenever charging Thunderstrike. You want the double crit chance. Thunderstrike is your bread and butter. I did an increased attack speed on Flatten because it allows you to... It's just a little bit faster of an animation. You never want to hard cast Flatten by any means, but one thing to note, Raze does actually increase Flatten as well. So you kind of, if you want to try and utilize that stagger into a Flatten, if you know they're not going to stagger you beforehand or something along those lines, like you might be able to pull it off with a healer if they don't backstep away from you. But you kind of need that attack speed animation if you're going to be doing anything with that. Next up, 25% cooldown on dash. You know, whenever I originally started playing Berserker, I didn't think that this was good. For some reason, I was just like, oh no, man, I just got to go for the one-shots. My Berserker playstyle has completely and utterly changed from that perspective. I'm a huge fan of control. I'm a huge fan of just pure knockdown chains. I typically never go for those huge hits anymore. Next up, because this essentially makes it to where you can almost always have it. If you happen to have cooldown reduction rolls on your axe, like I do, I really enjoy cooldown reduction rolls. Oh, person's right next to me. This essentially makes it to where it's a, let's see, we're looking at a 19-second cooldown, and I think that's even before the cooldown reduction comes in. So let's just say an 18-second cooldown on a 15-second skill. Essentially, I have 3 seconds of not moving at a dash run speed. It's huge. Okay, so next up, and this is both viable for PvE and PvP. Next up, Staggering Strike, increasing Thunderstrike. I'm a huge fan of whenever you can pull off a combo, make it count, deal all the damage you can possibly deal, and this helps basically bring that to its fullest potential. because whenever you pull off a combo, whenever you get a secondary knockdown and you're going to be using flatten, typically you don't want to raise flatten, you want to staggering strike flatten, because if you're running this glyph, you're going to be giving 30% increased Thunderstrike speed, or it works honestly either way, 30% Thunderstrike speed on your next channel, and that's going to be fast. That'll get you 2 more ticks out of your Thunderstrike overcharge, which is going to be an immense amount of damage increase. Next up, 25% charging speed on Cyclone. I think that this is a very, very strong glyph for PvP, solely due to the fact that you're not going to be cycloning all the time, but if you ever do want to cyclone, if you ever want to utilize it as a peel because it staggers every single hit, or if you want to be using it as like a combo ability or in like group PvP, you need the attack speed charge, because the moment that you don't have that, you're going to be charging it very slow. So here's one of those glyphs. So there are 2 glyphs so far that I would say are I would say that are at your discretion. I'm going to say the Thunderstrike charging speed and Leaping Strike damage. 25% damage on Leaping Strike is fucking massive, actually. If you pull off combos, or if you get a really strong hit in and you just need that finisher, Leaping Strike does essentially some of the highest instantaneous damage you can possibly get as a Berserker. And like I said, if they don't have Retaliate up, what you can actually do, and you're right next to them, you can actually, here, auto attack, raise, and then, sorry, I'm too used to hitting that Thunderstrike there, but auto attack, raise into Leaping Strike. Auto attack, raise, Leaping Strike. As you can see, that is an extremely fast animation, and that is a ton of extra damage as that finisher moves. I don't know how many times I've actually been finishing people off in solo queue with that single combo. Next up, here's where a lot of people may or may not disagree with me on a lot of these. I pop mana abilities on cooldown. With how I play my Berserker, not basically trying to be as fluid as possible in most of my animations, what that means is that I'm going to be axe block canceling. I'll probably make a basics to Berserker PvP guide or something like that, but for those of you intermediate or even beginner Berserkers, axe block canceling is whenever you use an ability and instead of being locked in for that extreme amount of time, you attack and then axe block immediately after. That's going to shorten that cooldown, or shorten that lockdown on that skill immensely. I do it almost on every single ability that I do. Pretty much like everything. Auto attacks, staggering strike, flatten into another. Like everything I do essentially has an auto or a block cancel on it, because it limits the lockdown on your character from that. And in return, it takes a shit ton of mana, because every time you're blocking, you're using mana. I pop mana stuff on cooldown, basically. And so with that, I reduced the cooldown by 20%. The main reason why I did the 20% cooldown on this wasn't for the stun immunity or anything like that. It's because it just works really well with these 2 other glyphs that I have. Restorative Tenacity gives you 12% HP every time you use Tenacity. Once again, with the 20% glyph right here, that's going to give me 6 seconds off because it's a 30-second cooldown, and then my weapon gives me another 7.2%. So what is that going to be? That's going to be another like half a second or something like that. Maybe no, a little bit longer than that. Another like 4 seconds off. So essentially it's a 20-second cooldown. 20-second cooldown where once I use that 22-second cooldown, once I use that, I gain 12% health. This can be utilized while kiting. This can be utilized while just basically you need the stun immunity from the tenacity that it gives you. Everything. just increased cooldown reduction along with the 12% heal is massive. Once again, this was another glyph that I was like, I don't think it's worth it. But after messing around, it's amazing. And if you do happen to do a lot of solo queue or a lot of battlegrounds, you find yourself without a healer a ton. And this just helps you get some that needed sustain because, you know, we're Berserkers. We kill ourselves when we use abilities. Next up is going to be Spirited Tenacity. This one is... I like it. Because the moment it procs, which is a 50% proc chance, it's going to give you 5 seconds of 6% of your total MP every second. That's 30% of your mana. You know, granted, it doesn't proc all the time. It is an RNG one, and that is definitely one that I would say you can live with or without. But I do think decreased cooldown and the 12% are almost necessary. But this one right here will give you a lot of necessary mana in a lot of situations. Alright, next up, the glyph setup that I am currently testing. Note guys, I am testing this. This is not 100% what I'm going to be using, but messing around with Raze. I dueled one of my fellow Berserkers in the guild, and I got shit-stomped. Berserkers now, I'm a very agile Berserker. I'm a very kiting-oriented Berserker. I'm going to hit you, and then I'm going to back off. I'm going to force that retail. Once I force that retail, then, okay, alright, so now I have another... making a video, sorry. Once I force that cooldown on that retaliate, that's whenever I'm backing off, okay, I see another opportunity. I get the tackle knocked down, alright? And then, at that point, I want to utilize skills like Raze, right? But before, I was so oriented around that, where it was kite and force into KD chains. Keep in mind, I still play like that. I don't think I will be changing off of that very, very hard. But what he was he was a very offensive Berserker. And this patch has allowed Berserkers to do that a lot more. Because with Raze, with it being that stagger, and with it being a skill that can swing around people, he was able to stay in melee range with me and just skirmish, just like Slayers do, just like Warriors do. Still not to that effect, but in a 1v1 against a Berserker, I didn't know what the fuck to do. And one reason why he was able to accomplish that was because Raze. Raze increased attack speed, making it an insanely fast skill. So it's basically just super easy to either stagger your opponent or just get extra damage in with having plenty of time to do some kind of follow-up with like a Thunder Strike. Once again, anytime I KD someone, so even if I just KD them like this, and I know they have their retail, I'm going to auto-attack Raze, or auto-raise them for just extra damage. And what that's going to do for me is when I hit that Raze, I have that glyph which is going to be giving me 25% Thunderstrike speed. It's almost like having a staggering strike increase on a, what is this, 10-second cooldown. That's not including the 7.2% CDR from my axe. That's insane. You're getting a Thunderstrike charge boost, which is your bread and butter skill, hands down. And you combine that after getting that auto raise, and then they're like, oh, they jaunt away, you tackle. Guess what? You're going to be getting a 3 to 4 tick overcharge because the retail is going to be down instead of a 1 tick overcharge or a 2 tick overcharge. It's a massive skill in my opinion. Like I think the Raze glyph here should be in every single build, the Thunderstrike one. The increased casting speed, I think that if you're going to try to learn how to skirmish with a Berserker, the Swift Raze is an extremely strong skill, or strong glyph. So this is my current build, guys. Axe block mana, you have to have it. I don't care, PvE, PvP, you have to have the axe block. Restore mana. Everything in Thunderstrike, attack speed and flatten, cooldown reduction and dash. Once again, this one is kind of up to your own discretion. Blazing Staggering Strike, making your Thunder Strike charge faster for the next few seconds. You could maybe even use something like the Persistent Staggering Strike, giving you a chance to reset the cooldown. A stun is always nice. Hasten Cyclone, so a faster charging speed on your Cyclone. 25% leaping strike damage. And I'll kind of go over the ones that I missed after this. I am currently using Energetic Tenacity, Restorative Tenacity, and Spirited Tenacity. I love Tenacity, basically. Just because it's going to give you a lot of sustain, it's going to give you that stun immunity, and it's going to give you a lot of mana sustain as well. And currently glyphing the Blazing Thunderstrike on your Raze, as well as the attack speed on Raze. To kind of go through what other glyphs can you use? Alright, what other glyphs can I use? 25% damage on Flatten. Perfectly fine glyph. You can put that in a lot of specs, especially if you like doing the Staggering Strike into a Flatten. You know, Flatten is a really, really solid skill that you can pull off a lot of the time. It's in your staple KD combo. It is a good glyph. Persistent Staggering Strike. 35% chance to eliminate the cooldown. It's kind of an RNG one, and this was one of the only ways that Berserkers could really increase their Thunder Strike speed. So I think it's lost a lot of its luster from last patch, or level 60 cap, but I still think it's a viable rune. Next up, this Grounded Triumphant Shout. I think a lot of people overlook how strong this actually is. 16 endurance for 12 seconds. Okay, to put it in perspective, Berserkers have 29 endurance. Okay, that's base endurance. Plus 19. So, plus 19. And I'm in pretty fair gear, right? So, I'm at, what would that be? 48. 48 endurance. If you glyph this, and it's only 3 points. That's cheap. You can find a way to fit this in. You're literally getting a 33% increase for 12 seconds on your endurance. And endurance is basically strong, like defense. Like, it's a very, very strong one, especially if you're getting focused a lot in arenas. You don't want to glyph anything else in Cyclone. Leaping Strike. If you're going to do anything else in Leaping Strike, what you want to do is you want to do Carving. Carving doubles the crit chance. Once again, great finisher, only 3 points. You know, this is where you're going to be choosing between that Spirited Tenacity, that double crit strike on leaping, that Grounded Triumphant Shout. You know, all those are 3.1s, which are insanely strong. Empowered Vampiric Blow is not bad. If you are a beginning Zerker, I think Empowered Vampiric Blow is pretty strong. Because it provides, if you're doing a lot of overcharging, a lot of just trying to hit hard, as we all know, Vampiric Strike becomes an instant cast after you overcharge something, even if it's just one tick. So I have to actually hit a mob before it activates, where I can do that. Here, let me do that right over here. Oh man, I was wanting to make this video like 10 minutes and it's like 23 minutes already. But instantly Vamp Strike after. It's pretty strong. So that's just essentially an additional damage bonus if you are planning on strictly going for those hard hits. And then outside of that, realistically, if you once again want to go for the hard hits, you can go for the Carving Evasive Smash and the Empowered Evasive Smash. I personally use Evasive Smash as a very mobile. It's a mobile skill for me. It's an iframe. You know, granted, there are times whenever a healer jaunts away, whenever I'm fully charging something, I will roll into that, and then I will use that as a damaging skill. But a lot of times, Evasive Smash is a mobility to me, because I can Axe Block cancel, and it's essentially one of the very few gap closers a Berserker has. Okay. For the most part, that's really it. Out of all the new skills, some people have been checking this Fleet-Footed Tackle, which I personally don't think it's super valid, because it costs 5 points right now. It costs 5 points right now, and it's 20 movement speed, which is not bad. That's more than a Swift Crux or a Swift Niviot. However, it's you're not going to use tackle all that often because you don't want to you don't want to waste it. You don't want to just throw it out aimlessly. You want to do it whenever you think you can land that hit, and whenever, or if you're perpetuating a KD. And not to mention, it is a 15-second cooldown, so you could keep that movement speed up forever. But to utilize that, you would have to literally be using it on cooldown, which it's also actually a kind of expensive cost skill. It uses over 10% of your mana. You know, I'm at 120 stam right now, and it uses over 10% of my mana. But yeah, so that's my glyphs, guys. Let's move on to crystals, because I know everyone is fucking hating me right now for how long this video is. Hopefully all the berserkers out there, because this is kind of more of a flavor of the month class, are finding this valuable, finding this information valuable. Alright guys, next up is going to be crystals. So crystals are fairly straightforward for the most part. Right now, I still believe you want to be using griefing Xerx. So not the new stuff. You might be able to use carving. You might be able to use the new carving, these things, carving Virsk. However, I still believe that pristine griefing Xerx as well as pristine indomitable Xerx are going to be better, maybe until people get more crit resists, and then we're going to need to use those carvings. But as it sits right now, pristine indomitable, I like running 2 and 2. If you'd like, you can run 4 griefing if you really want to go for the damage, or if you're getting hardcore focused, go for the 4 out of 4 indomitable. Okay, for armor. Armor is pretty straightforward for a berserker. You literally just want to use 3-piece relentless and 1 grieving. Relentless is pure health. Grieving is mana when players attack you, which is still applied to you while you are blocking. You know, it's free mana, and like I said, berserkers have shit for mana sustain, so you need that kind of mana sustain. Once again, the only other one that might be possible between this is going to be this Resolute Crux, which decreases damage by 9.5% when under 50%. I think there is a newer one as well. I believe there's a Niviot of it, which is probably around like 10.2% or something like that. It's essentially just a good idea. It provides a little bit more tankiness to you whenever you're under 50%, which as a berserker, we're killing ourselves a lot, and it's definitely one of those things that might help out. Alright, into the weapon. The weapon, you do have some choices. You have some choices to make. My current build is Virulent Niviot, Cruel Niviot, Savage Niviot, and Swift Niviot. What this build provides for me is whenever I KD a person and it crits, Berserkers crit a shit ton, by the way, you apply a poison effect. This damages, from what I've seen, for about 1.2 thousand damage every second for either 5 or 6 seconds. That's actually a lot of damage. I don't know how many people I've killed because poison damage. This applies some form of constant damage, which berserkers lack because we're so one hit heavy. And the great thing is, you're like, oh man, so I have to knock them down, and that ability has to crit. No, it's against knocked down enemies. So what I've found, once again with the level 65 patch, like I said, even if they have their retaliate up, I do this: Thunderstrike, auto attack Raze. If that auto attack crits, if that Raze crits, or that Thunderstrike crits, every single or one of those is going to apply the poison debuff. Okay, before it was a little bit harder because you didn't have Raze. Before you could maybe get an auto attack off, which essentially you only had 2 chances of critting instead of 3. It's huge. Much higher chance for this to come into play. Next up is Cruel Nivyat. First of all, I don't know why they still haven't fixed this goddamn tooltip. It says 7 increases your attack power against knockdown opponents. What does this actually mean? What this actually means is when you knock someone down, alright, it applies a buff to you which gives you a crit multiplier. Okay. It gives you a crit multiplier when you knock someone down. Here we are. Critical damage increased by 0.48 for 8 seconds. You're a Berserker. There is no internal cooldown on this. You are going to knock someone down every single damn ability you do, almost. Alright. Essentially, that's a permanent crit multiplier, which is insane. Okay. It's fine, Savage Nivyat. Standard. Standard for literally any DPS class. You need a crit multiplier when attacking from behind. You know, anytime you are a Berserker, anytime you start getting people into a KD chain, you want to be behind them. You do not want to be attacking in the front. You want to get these crit multipliers. And like I said, any DPS, you want to be using Savage Nivyat. Next up is Swift. Swift Nivyat is just going to be increasing your in-combat movement speed. In combat means once your axe or your weapon is out and about and you're chasing after that healer who has a slow on you or who's trying to fear you or who's trying to sleep you or whatever it may be, you're going to be running faster. This is core because, once again, we don't have a gap closer, you know, outside of a mini roll like Evasive Smash. So, things that you can switch out on this. There are a couple of them. Here's that bleed that I was talking about. 1300 damage, 1300 damage, 1300 damage. Pretty insane with a Cruel. Okay. Lastly, couple things that you can choose to do with a Berserker. The ones that I would say you can choose to switch out would be Cruel Nivyat and Swift Nivyat. I think Virulent should be in every single Berserker's toolkit. I love that glyph. Alright, so, or that crystal. The Cruel Nivyat is a smaller crit multiplier. So you can choose, it's pretty much always on, but let's say you're going for an Evasive Smash really hard hit. That's not going to be applied because you don't have a KD on them. Or your Swift Nivyat. With things like your 15 or your 18 second cooldown on dash, with things like using Evasive Smash to get to them a little bit closer, you can choose to not utilize Swift. However, I like chasing potential because that's how you kill people, by catching up to them as a Berserker. The only two that I would say you could maybe switch this out for is going to be a Carving Nivyat, which is 3.2% increased crit chance. Crits are good. Crits are how you kill people. And then a Salivating Nivyat. This gives you mana when attacking a player. If you are a Berserker who, once again, I said that you have a lot of mana issues as a Berserker, you might be able to unglyph a lot of these tenacity points and go for a Salivating glyph if you are a very head-on Berserker. So this means you're going to be going for those auto attacks, Raze, go for the Thunder Strike. Like, I think there's like a one second internal cooldown on this, but you're going to be getting a lot more mana efficiency if you are trying to get up in people's face as a Berserker, rather than playing my kiting style. Alright guys, so that's going to be for the PvP crystals. PvE is very simple. This is what you want to use. focused, bitter, savage, carving. Bitter equal acrimonious if you are using 60 stuff. Focused, bitter, savage, carving. Only one that you might possibly change would be carving, which you might want to try to use forceful, or you might want to try to use yeah, basically forceful. Otherwise, maybe a mutinous. Typically, to deal damage as a berserker, you have to crit. Okay. For the armor, hardy, hardy, hardy. This should be a hardy, but I'm poor. Not really poor, but I don't have a hardy. Hardy, hardy, hardy. If you are not 60, anarchic, 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 anarchic. Simple as that. Alright guys, I'm going to break down this video a little bit more. For those of you who actually watched all the way through, thank you very much. I apologize for everyone who is not a Berserker. I know this was pretty much a Berserker only video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Once again, thank you all for watching. Make sure to follow if you haven't already. Follow my Twitter @Kilrian. Updates anytime I start to stream or upload a YouTube video. And leave in the comments down below what you want to see. I'm going to be making a gold guide video here soon because I know a lot of people have been requesting that, as well as a how to gear at 65. Once again guys, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to click that like button, and I'll catch y'all next time.